Andrew Tate says that he is running for Prime Minister of the UK. Is that even possible? And why do so many conservatives seem to believe that he is a guy worth admiring? We will remind ourselves of who Andrew Tate is on today's episode of Relatable. And we will also be looking at the lowlights of Biden's presidency in light of his farewell address last night. We've also got a hot take from AOC and the pushback that Carrie Underwood is unfortunately suffering through right now, all on today's episode of Relatable. It's brought to you by our friends at Good Ranchers. Go to goodranchers.com/Allie, code Allie, goodranchers.com/Allie. Hey guys, welcome to Relatable. Happy Thursday. Hope everyone is having a wonderful week so far. We've got so much to get into today. I have failed my resolution over the past 2 days in keeping our episodes under an hour. So close, so close. But today I will try my darndest to accomplish that, even though I seem to be the only one amongst us who really cares, because y'all out there don't seem to care at all. Before we get into it, I just want to tease a little bit of an announcement. Share the Arrows 2024 was such a huge success beyond anything we could have imagined when we first planned it. And we really only had a few months to plan it last year. This year, thankfully, we have a lot more time to plan, and Share the Arrows 2025 is going to happen this fall. We are going to announce very, very soon the location and the date. Tickets will go on sale soon. Don't worry, I'm going to give you all of the details on that, but I want you to be on the lookout because this year is going to be a little bit different. It is possible that it could sell out. And so if you are planning to come back to Share the Arrows 2025 and don't worry, it's going to be fresh and a little bit different from last year, but also very similar. And so you're going to get the same power, the same encouragement that you got this past year, but shaking things up just a little bit. Or if you couldn't come last year and you're like, okay, this is the year I'm going to make it, I really encourage you to just be on the lookout because I will be making an announcement soon. And I'm just so excited. Lord willing, it is going to be even better and more edifying than it was in 2024. So I just wanted to make sure that that was already percolating in your brain so that you can keep your eyes peeled. All right. First, a very brief update on what is going on Capitol Hill right now. We are just a few days out from the inauguration. Praise God. And Trump's picks are going through confirmation hearings. We talked about Pete Hegseth and all of the crazy hysterical back and forth that he had to endure. Marco Rubio went through his confirmation hearing yesterday. Pam Bondi, her confirmation hearing for Attorney General. Several others like Kristi Noem, Sean Duffy, Russ Vought, John Ratcliffe. I think that these are all going to be really effective picks, and hopefully they will be confirmed. The hearings happening today on Thursday include Doug Burgum for the Interior Department, Scott Turner for the Housing and Urban Development Department. I've actually known Scott Turner for a long time. He served in the legislature in Texas with my dad. Really, really good guy. Such a solid pick and a very, very strong, solid Christian. A lot of these picks, from what I know, have a solid faith in Christ. And that is something to just celebrate. That in itself is a reason for all Christians to be grateful, because that was not the case in Biden's administration. It would not have been the case in a Kamala administration. So that in itself is just such a grace. Lee Zeldin for the EPA, Scott Bessent for the Treasury Department, and Pam Bondi will go before the Senate Judiciary Committee for a second day. And then also Kristi Noem, she's going to go through her hearings. I think I accidentally said that she had already gone through hers. She's expected to appear on Friday. Doug Collins for the Department of Veterans Affairs, it's expected to appear the day after the inauguration. So next Tuesday, there are still some other candidates whose dates have not yet been selected. None of his picks have been confirmed as of this recording. According to Newsweek, it usually takes between 1 and 2 weeks between clearing the committee and the full Senate vote. And so that is just a very brief update of what's going on. We just don't have time to get into all of the specifics because I want to make sure that we look at some of the highlights, if you will, if you can even call it that, of Biden's farewell address. I have never been more excited to see someone say goodbye. And once we get into some of the lowlights of Biden's presidency, you will understand why I'm saying that. I'm just going to play you this. How Biden sees the state of the country and the state of the future of America. No surprise, it's very dark and pessimistic. Here's shot one.
Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms, and a fair shot for everyone to get ahead. We see the consequences all across America, and we've seen it before.
Okay, so he just kind of goes on that, and that, of course, is the rallying cry that we have heard from Democrats for several years now, that Republicans are a threat to democracy, that Donald Trump is some kind of dictator, that he's so similar to Hitler and taking us on a fast track to Nazism. It's all ridiculous. I know that resonates for some people on the left. I'm not sure that most people are buying that now. And if you're a Democrat, I just want you to rest assured that picture, that bleak picture of an anti-democratic future is not real. Okay, it's not founded in reality, that has been used to stoke fear and anger and resentment. So you will continue to give the failing Democratic Party more power. And I say failing because if you look at every single city in which progressive policies have increasingly dominated over the past 10 years, they've all deteriorated. They've all gotten worse. They've all gotten less safe. They've all gotten dirtier. It's not really a mystery that the Democrats' progressive policies not only don't work, but they're actually harmful. They're actually dangerous. They're actually bad. They make your life worse. They make it less safe and dirtier and more expensive. And so in order to get you to continue to vote for the people whose policies so tangibly fail so consistently, they have to tell you that the other side is even worse because they are a threat to democracy. They're a threat to your freedoms. The only so-called freedom that they're talking about, though, just as a reminder to you, as we talked about so much in the campaign, when Democrats talk about freedom, they are talking about sexual perversion and abortion. That's it. They're not talking about your free speech. They're not talking about your right to defend yourself. They're not talking about freedom of religion. They're talking about libertinism, the freedom to act out any kind of sexual perversion that you would like and be celebrated for it. They're talking about the so-called freedom to declare yourself a gender that you will never be, no matter how you self-identify. They're talking about the freedom to kill your child. So they're talking about sexual promiscuity, sexual perversion, and killing your baby. And I guess the degeneracy that includes smoking pot wherever you want to. They're not talking about your constitutional rights. And so that when they say they're protecting democracy, those are the only freedoms that they really care about protecting at the end of the day. So just rest assured that you will actually be safer and very likely more prosperous because of Trump's policies versus Biden's. So just be comforted by that if you are on the other side of the aisle and you're so scared that this fascist is about to take office. Biden had several complaints. He said that social media companies aren't doing enough to censor American social media is giving up on fact checking. Yes, because the fact checking that social media has done thus far, companies like Meta, formerly Twitter, has been very arbitrary because the fact checking is being done by people who are ideologically driven, not by people who are driven by objective facts. Biden claimed that his administration brought violent crime down to a 50-year low. Of course, that's just not true. Most of that doesn't even happen on the federal level. whether Trump is in office or Biden is in office. They do have some impact on that, but not as much as at the state and local level. According to the Marshall Project in 2023, they said more than 6,000 law enforcement agencies were missing from the FBI's national crime data last year, representing nearly 1/3 of the nation's 18,000 police agencies. So this means that a quarter of the U.S. population wasn't represented in the federal crime data last year. And if you look at what data is missing, very often it's those big progressive cities where so much of the crime is happening. And so I wanted to go through some of the lowlights of Biden's presidency. And so you can understand why I and so many others, and most of you, are extremely giddy to see him leave. It's not cruelty. It's not being politically petty. It is actually because I love my neighbor. That's why I am happy that the Biden administration is coming to an end. So we'll get into 5 lowlights in just a second. Let me pause and tell you about our first sponsor for the day, and that is Lumen. Y'all, Lumen is this awesome company that makes the very first handheld metabolic coach. We've had several Wellness Wednesday guests who have told us the importance of having a healthy metabolism. It's not so simple as calories in, calories out. Yes, that has an effect on losing weight, absolutely, but ensuring that you are eating the right things, exercising in the right way for your metabolism really matters for your overall health. And that is why Lumen exists. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. And on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs and gives you tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, workouts, sleep, and even stress management. So you breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and it'll tell you right away what is going on with your metabolism. Are you currently burning fat, which is what you want if you're trying to lose fat, or are you just burning carbs? You can also breathe into it before or after workouts and meals, so you know how your body is metabolizing what you're eating. Metabolism is your body's engine. It's how you turn the foods that you eat into fuel that keeps you going. It can also track your cycle as well as the onset of menopause. It can adjust recommendations to keep your metabolism healthy through hormonal shifts so you can keep up your energy and stave off cravings. That is especially important to the women in my audience. If you are like perimenopausal or you're menopausal, I have heard that can really throw things for a loop, and this can just help you stay on track and to feel as good as you possibly can. Go to lumen.me/relatable. You'll get 20% off this device. That is lumen.me/relatable for 20% off. lumen.me/relatable. Okay, let's quickly go through some lowlights of his presidency. We were discussing this over some messages yesterday, and it was really hard to narrow it down. Like, to narrow it down to 5, because we could spend many, many episodes, as we did when Biden was president, talking about what are the worst parts of his presidency. So this was tough. This was our bottom 5, but I am sure many of you have other memories out there. Or if you're thinking, how could you not possibly include this? This was a huge one. Like I said, it was tough, and these are subjective, and so they're always subject to change. We can debate in the YouTube comments if you would like about what were the very worst parts of Biden's presidency, and I would love to hear from you, your opinion about that. The first lowlight that came to my mind was the Afghanistan withdrawal, and I feel like we don't talk about that enough. I know there are some in the media world that still discuss just what a disaster this was, but the loss of life, the avoidable loss of life, was so tragic. So just as a reminder, in April of 2021, Biden ordered the complete withdrawal of American troops from Afghanistan without any of the conditions that Trump had previously negotiated. This was despite warnings from U.S. military officials that the Taliban would take over. According to the Foreign Affairs Committee, the withdrawal culminated in the Abbey Gate terrorist attack on August 26, 2021. So this is what we all remember, which killed 13 U.S. service members, wounding another 45, and killed more than 170 Afghan civilians. Like, you'll remember those videos that we saw of U.S. planes taking off, and like Afghans, like the men literally like holding on to the planes and falling off the planes to their death. They didn't want to be left there under Taliban rule. It was just such a disaster. Biden also left the Taliban over $7 billion worth of military equipment. So it was so catastrophic that there was really no plan to get the weaponry out of Afghanistan before the troops withdrew. And so now you've got this evil regime of the Taliban there with access to all of this deadly weaponry. Number two, I would say it was the North Carolina disaster. This is another low light of the Biden presidency. In September 2024, Category 4 Hurricane Helene caused destruction and the deaths of at least 230 people. It was particularly devastating for North Carolina, and we still have many in the Southeast, in particular North Carolina, still recovering from this and will be for a long time. As the storm was making landfall, President Biden spent the weekend at his beach house in Delaware. Vice President Harris was campaigning in Las Vegas. As residents in rural North Carolina struggled with recovery, FEMA was ordering its workers to, quote unquote, avoid homes advertising Trump when identifying residents who could qualify for federal aid. That is a real story. We reported on it at the time. That came from Daily Wire originally. We can put a link in the description of this episode. And really, Biden and Harris, they had very little to say, even in the way of comfort when it came to North Carolina residents. And as far as I remember, I don't think Biden visited North Carolina at all. If I am wrong about that, forgive me, but that was part of this disaster, that they just simply did not show the same compassion, the same passion for the people of North Carolina as he has certainly for the residents of California. And it's unclear why. It certainly wasn't a good campaign decision. Number three, COVID mandates. In September 2021, Biden issued an executive order requiring federal workers to be vaccinated. Later that month, he ordered a sweeping vaccination mandate for businesses with more than 100 employees, which the Supreme Court, thank the Lord, later blocked. And many companies did say, nah, we're just not doing that, and you're going to have to fight us over it. In October 2021, Biden said he believed police officers and first responders who refused the vaccine should be fired. And of course, California did do that. As we talked about earlier this week, the LA Fire Department let go of, I think it was over 100 firefighters who refused to get that experimental vaccine. Oh, by the way, I just want to pause. I saw some comment the other day saying, oh, you can't listen to Allie Stuckey because she got the COVID vaccine. First of all, that's silly. And secondly, no, I did not. I did not. No one in my family did. No, I did not get the COVID vaccine. You crazy person. Anyway, so this mandate, completely unconstitutional, completely draconian, stupid, led to many consequences. Biden personally thanked Coast Guard member Zach Lash for his heroics in rescuing Hurricane Ian victims, but then forced the same hero to be dismissed days later for not getting vaccinated via his policy. Another lowlight of the Biden presidency was their unabashed celebration of transgenderism. You'll remember they had this Pride Day in 2023 in which a trans activist, a man who dresses up as, believes that he is a woman, actually did like a topless photo for the camera in front of the White House, which was very disturbing. They also hung up the so-called Pride Progress flag, which inexplicably includes like black and brown for people's skin color. I don't understand, but also includes the transgender weird creepo baby colors flag in the flag. And so they hung that from the White House there to have their Pride celebration. And of course, just in general, the unabashed celebration of this dangerous and harmful lie that a man can become a woman, that a man can enter girls' spaces, etc. Within hours of taking the oath of office, President Biden signed an executive order, quote, preventing and combating discrimination on the basis of gender identity or sexual orientation, trying to make it impossible for any entity, especially an entity that takes federal funds, to say, sorry, these spaces are reserved for actual women. In April, the Biden administration announced it would redefine sex in the Title IX rules to include gender identity, requiring schools to ignore the biological distinction between male and female in favor of, quote, an individual's sense of their gender. So again, no protected spaces for girls and women. That was a high priority of the Biden administration. They fully support the genital mutilation of minors in the name of self-identity. And then I would say lastly, but certainly not least, has been the disaster at the border. Just the dereliction of duty when it comes to immigration policy and protecting innocent people like Blake and Riley, because of the perpetuation of the catch and release policy, because they fought tooth and nail against every good and wise policy that the Trump administration had put in place. People died, and it was a disaster. I think one specific lowlight that I can recall from that was the time that Border Patrol agents were trying to stop an illegal Haitian migrant. There was a Border Patrol agent that was on his horse, and you'll remember there was a picture of him grabbing his shirt, and you had people, even social justice evangelicals, saying, this is like the slave patrol. This is racism. Somehow a Border Patrol agent doing his job, and he was put on temporary leave while the Biden administration and Mayorkas investigated this guy to see if there was any wrongdoing, because he grabbed the shirt of someone who had no right to be crossing our border, taking away the buoys and any barriers that Texas put in place, the federal government under Biden's direction, taking away barbed wire, taking away the buoys that Texas had put in place to try to protect its border. I would say that was certainly a low light. There are many other things that come to mind when I think of the DOJ going after parents who sounded the alarm at school board meetings about porn, progressive ideology infiltrating their kids' curriculum. The DOJ seeming to deem these parents domestic terrorists. I would certainly call that a low light. And so 5 was just not enough. There are so many other aspects of the presidency that were so wicked and so bad for the country that we don't even have time to get into them all. So sayonara, farewell. We are about to go into a week of celebration of Trump taking office yet again, and we're excited about that. All right, I just want to, before we get into the Andrew Tate segment, I just want to respond really quickly to AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, as we are talking about the insanity of transgenderism and the danger that it poses, especially to vulnerable children, especially to women and girls who just want safety in their own spaces, who just want a fair shot in athletics, and who want to be able to compete for scholarships without having to compete against a man who is on average so much bigger and stronger and faster than her. Thankfully, Republicans passed the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act that is supposed to protect those women who want to compete fairly. But AOC, Democrat in Congress, she was very upset about this. And so she went on her sassy rant on the House floor this week. And I just got to respond to it. Here's Sot 2.
Trans girls are girls. And for all the folks that are so concerned, thank you for your concern about women for the first time that I've seen. I don't know about y'all. I don't know who's been to gym class lately, but girls, even if you only believe in two genders, I've played co-ed sports all the time.
Do you?
But what this also opens the door for is for women to try to perform a very specific kind of femininity for the very kind of men who are drafting this bill, and to open up questioning of who is a woman because of how we look, how we present ourselves, and yes, what we choose to do with our bodies.
What are you even talking about? So you see the threat of women feeling like they have to perform a certain kind of femininity, whatever the heck that means, is a bigger threat than a fully intact male going into a girl's bathroom or locker room or taking the scholarships away from girls in track or soccer or volleyball. Like, you see that very obscure, abstract thing is a bigger threat than the tangible threat of men in women's spaces. Even if you believe in two genders, she said, there are two genders. You are the person who believes this superstitious, spiritual, new age nonsense that someone can declare themselves something different than what their biology tells them. You believe this idea that you can feel a certain way and that trumps biological reality, that how you feel, that the ideas that you have about yourself actually inform reality more than physical reality does. And so you are the one that believes some pseudo-religious doctrine of self-identification that is actually rooted in demonic lunacy. And you believe that everyone should conform to you and progressive ideologues' religious, weirdo, freakazoid ideas about gender. And we should not have to. Like, we can disagree on different policy ideas. We cannot disagree on the facts and function together as a society. And one of the most fundamental facts that has been observed in every society for all of time is the fundamental difference between male and female. Don't ever tell me that you care about women's rights. Don't ever tell me that you care about protecting girls when you can't even define what these things are. AOC only cares about protecting women's rights when it means being able to kill a baby girl inside the womb. That is her definition of protecting women and girls. She doesn't actually care. And she's really not articulate or smart. Can I just say that? I know some people out there are going to be like, oh, that's too far, some personal attack. Let me remind you that she's advocating for something evil. And the combination of stupidity and evil is really, really dangerous. There are a lot of historical examples of that, but we just saw one right there. She's making history. The combination of evil and stupid is very, very dangerous. We should really stop giving legitimately dumb people power. We live almost, it seems, in a cakeistocracy where we are rewarding people for their idiocy if they are simply able to repeat what we want them to say. I would encourage both Republicans and Democrats to stop doing that. But one example of us giving people prominence and power who are really stupid and really do not deserve to have any prominence or power or influence at all is Andrew Tate. So we are going to get into that in just a second. Let me pause and tell you about our second sponsor for the day, and that is Patriot Mobile. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. They offer a way to vote with your wallet without compromising on quality or convenience. Patriot Mobile is not just about providing exceptional cell phone service. It's a call to action to defend our rights and freedoms. With Patriot Mobile, you get outstanding nationwide coverage because they operate on all three major networks. If you have cell phone service today, you can get cell phone service with Patriot Mobile with the coverage guarantee. But the difference is every dollar you spend supports the First and Second Amendments, the sanctity of life, our veterans and first responders. Switching is really easy. They have a 100% U.S.-based customer service team that helps you find the perfect plan. You can keep your number, keep your phone, or you can upgrade. Go to patriotmobile.com/Allie. Get a free month of service with my code Allie. patriotmobile.com/Allie, code Allie. Andrew Tate. Why are we talking about Andrew Tate again? We did an episode on him a couple years ago that was, for a while, it was my most listened to episode ever. Not most watched, but most listened to. I don't know. It might still be. And that surprised me at the time. I guess that just goes to show there are definitely people talking about the dangers of Andrew Tate. I am not even close to the only one, but there aren't enough conservative commentators talking about the danger of Andrew Tate, because there are many that make excuses for him who like to say that, well, he's saying true things about feminism. He's saying true things about society becoming too effeminate. He is encouraging men to be strong and to be confident and to be successful and gritty and all of these things. So there are some, it's a net positive, Andrew Tate, on young men. And we should blame feminism for men rebelling against the cultural zeitgeist and following Andrew Tate. That's some of the debate, the discussion, some of the opinions that you'll see on the right. And you will see conservatives unabashedly, without caveat, uncritically platform Andrew Tate and say, well, he's got interesting things to say about society, so I'm just going to forget the rest of everything that he is, and I'm going to platform him without pushing back at all on the things that he has said. And it's not just, oh yeah, he's said some offensive things, or he has a bad past that he's really ashamed of now, because certainly I don't think that people are perfect, or that you have to be perfect, or that you have to have a squeaky clean past to have anything interesting to say or to be platformed or interviewed. It's not that. It's that I think that to this day, he is very much a net negative when it comes to his influence. I don't think that he has interesting things to say. I don't think he brings anything unique to the table that needs to be listened to by young men, especially in light of everything else he says and does. So again, why are we talking about this right now? Why is he making headlines? Let me give you some background first. He's a British American social media influencer, 10.5 million followers on X, 2 million on Rumble. He became popular by posting often controversial advice to young men about how to be more masculine, make more money. That was about a decade ago, and he, as we will talk about, he basically ran a pimping business, an e-cam business, where he would hire girls to make money for him by doing virtual porn sessions with lots of male customers around the world. The women would take a tiny cut of the money, and then Tate and his brother, I believe, would take most of the money. And so he also sold courses on how men can become pimps and how men can get women to do whatever they want them to do. Now he claims he is a Muslim. He recently converted to Islam. He's extremely popular in the UK. A 2023 survey found that 8 in 10 British boys ages 16 and 17 had consumed Tate's content. He moved to Romania in 2017. He's publicly stated that one significant reason for moving was to evade potential legal repercussions in the UK, particularly related to sexual assault allegations. In 2017, he was a big supporter of Donald Trump. He met with Donald Trump Jr. at Trump Tower in August 2017 and 2023. He appeared on Tucker Carlson's show. He's been on many other conservative shows as well. Tate has referred to himself as a pimp. He gained his wealth, again, by manipulating women and girls into performing for his pornographic webcam business. He has admitted openly, and we'll go through some of these admissions that he has recorded and posted. He has admitted to assaulting these women, continues to prove, I think, what I would call his moral bankruptcy through his recent words. He faces charges right now in Romania for human trafficking, for trafficking of minors, for forming an organized criminal group, sexual intercourse with a minor, and money laundering. Now, he denies these allegations. He says that they're not true. He says that the Matrix is out to get him because he is disrupting the feminist system, and the Matrix doesn't want men to be strong, and he's helping men be strong. And so these allegations aren't true. So I do need to say that he denies most, if not all, of these allegations. He and his brother Tristan also have a British arrest warrant for charges of rape and human trafficking. They will be extradited after Romanian trial proceedings, which have yet to be scheduled. There's a lot of back and forth about that. Why is he being talked about right now? Following the recent outrage of Britain's handling of the grooming gang scandal, Andrew Tate announced his intention to quote unquote run for Prime Minister of the UK, along with the creation of his new political party, BRUV, British slang for brother, which stands for Britain Restoring Underlying Values. He posted this on X. He said, ultra serious post. Should I enter politics and run for Prime Minister of the UK? 69% of people said yes, save Britain, what Britain is spelled incorrectly. It is worth noting that the UK does not elect prime ministers by popular vote, by the way. So when he says that he's running for prime minister, there's a little confusion about that. How exactly is he going to do that? Also worth knowing, because there is a warrant for Tate's arrest in Great Britain, he will be extradited as soon as his criminal cases again in Romania are concluded. We already said that. Just before his prime minister announcement in December, a Romanian Court of Appeals sent the human trafficking case brought against the Tate brothers back to the prosecutors rather than proceeding to trial, citing flaws in the indictment. While the case against him is not dismissed, Tate presented the recent legal rulings as evidence of his innocence and political prosecution in an attempt to align himself with Trump. So he said this. He said, Trump accused of sex crimes. Tate's accused of sex crimes. Trump vilified by old recordings making jokes. Tate vilified by old recordings making jokes. You can tell me if the recordings that we're about to show you look like jokes. You can decide. Trump false court cases in lawfare, Tate false court cases in lawfare. Trump wins, Tate wins. So he's basically saying that he is a Trumpian figure. Tate appears to be aligning himself with other conservative figures, including a recent interview with popular conservative host Benny Johnson. Many other conservatives have been debating Tate's role and influence on politics. For example, on Sunday, Ben Shapiro's show was titled "The Right Should Dump Andrew Tate," which of course I absolutely agree with. So I'm just gonna play you. We'll just go through each of these clips. Tate speaking in his own words. He claims that this was all, you'll see in this montage, that all of his sordid past was more than a decade ago, that he's not involved in pimping anymore. But you really need to watch this montage on YouTube, because in some of these clips, you will see the date of when he is saying these things on the screen, which were not 10 years ago. We're talking about like 2021, 2022. He was talking about pimping women out and teaching men how to pimp women and how he makes his money by exploiting women. And he's also talking about abusing women, beating women. I guess he could say that's a joke, very strange thing to joke about. Again, not all of this was 10 years ago. And he hasn't said, by the way, this was part of my past. I don't do this anymore. I feel sorry for that. He claims that all of this was a decade ago. I guess that's his excuse or his way of repenting. But again, that is not even true. So let's just go ahead and play all together, SOT 3 through 6.
I have to f her so she obeys me. I don't give a about having sex with beautiful women. I f them so they listen to me, so I can get what I actually want, which is not them. It's a means to an end. Every single Bond girl was exploited. That's exactly what I do. When I watch a Bond film and I see him basically pimp a, to me that speaks to my heart. I've been there. I've done that. Anyone who's followed me long enough knows that I first made my $1 million with a webcam business. I have met beautiful women with a good personality and thought, she will make me money. I have to f this. I don't want to have sex with her. I just need the money.
My webcam company, things that happened 10 years ago. And that was a past life. You're talking about something that happened 10 years ago.
Do you do that still?
I have 3 girls who still work for me. And I'm being told I'm the worst person in the world by people who pretended they've never done anything wrong for the last 10 years. From 10 years ago. Things from 10 years ago. The idea that you did something 10 years ago.
For the last 2 to 3 years, I've been making money on OnlyFans from its inception all the way up till now. I'm currently filming this during the COVID pandemic. You may be watching this later on, but right now during the pandemic.
10 years ago, 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 10 years ago. It was 10 years. But then when Corona came, I scaled it back up, right? So I got 20 more girls online. We scaled that back up to $300,000 or $400,000 a month.
Andrew, don't your girls have your name tattooed on them?
20 girls have my name tattooed on them.
And how many girls have your name on them now?
22. I got 20. I'm on 22.
22. Oh, man.
He wanted me to get his name tattooed at all costs.
He wanted me to tattoo his name on me.
Yeah, the branding actually comes up in the 86-page document that was obtained from Romania. Let me read part of that. It says the criminal activities of these defendants are a form of slavery, according to the prosecutor's office, like 19th century U.S. slave owners who branded their slaves with a red iron.
You know what they didn't teach you in self-defense? Here's a little move. When I grab you by your neck and you start annoying me, trying to resist, and then I grab you by your neck again. Then what the you gonna do when your face is collapsed and your cheekbone's broken? You ain't gonna do but cry.
I guarantee I changed the way you look at sex forever. You're gonna be crying. I won't cry. I bet you cry. I bet you cry. You're saying I wouldn't cry. You're challenging me to a fight. You're saying I can't hurt you. You're out of your mind? I don't even have you. Forget the sex part. That's a distraction.
Okay, so that is Andrew Tate. And again, watch that on YouTube because that wasn't all 10 years ago. Some of what he was saying was just a few years ago. He openly admitted during COVID that he hired more girls to pimp out for this so-called sex work, this prostitution over cameras. Okay, he also tweeted recently, he posted recently on X, when girls are sad, they dress up nice and take selfies of themselves. Yes, my life's a mess, but someone will want to F me, so it's okay. Yes. What does this tell you about female nature? And this was just a few months ago. He also said, let's see, December 30th, 2024, fact, women are sex workers. Their primary job now is to find one customer called a boyfriend to pay for their lives in return for sex, basically, is what he says. If they fail at this, they do OnlyFans or porn, the same game with more than one customer. If they're ugly, they work a job badly and are miserable. So this is what he currently thinks of women. There is debate right now because he is back in the news and claims to be running for prime minister and has been platformed, interviewed by a variety of people again. Why do people listen to Andrew Tate? Is it something that we should consider? Is it because there is a dearth of masculinity on the right? Is it because Christians have become so feminized and have not given good masculine examples to men? I don't think that it is not worth debating that. I think it is fine asking, wait, why are men flocking to this? What is society doing wrong? What is attractive about Andrew Tate to these men? And I certainly think that there is something to this idea. I mean, think about the episode that we did yesterday with this idea that masculinity, that roughness in boys, that activity in boys has been demonized, and that boys, certainly in the education system, are expected to act like girls from a very young age. If you have not listened to or watched yesterday's episode with Dr. Leonard Sachs, you need to. He talks about how kindergarten, when kids are 5 and 6 years old, is really set up for 7-year-old girls. The activities, the curriculum, what is expected of kids when they go into kindergarten is really set up for a 7-year-old girl. It is not set up for a 5-year-old boy. And in the public school system, especially in lower socioeconomic areas, you've got boys being sent to kindergarten when they have just turned 5. Now, in private schools and more advantaged areas, you have boys not starting kindergarten until they're age 6, when they're a little more prepared, but still they can't compete against the 6-year-old girls that are going into kindergarten, because girls at that age are just more advanced socially and verbally. They are more able to sit still. They like doing the activities that they are expected to do in kindergarten, whereas boys are bouncing off the walls. In general, I know there are exceptions to this, but they want to be doing something. They want to be competing. They want to be outside. They want to be loud. This is part of their nature. And in general, today's education system does not accommodate that. So from a very young age, I do think boys are so often told that your nature is bad. And we so often label it as ADD or ADHD or autism, because they're not talking as much as a girl, or maybe they're not making eye contact as much as a girl, or they don't want to sit there and do a puzzle like a girl does. And so they're labeled as bad. And when you are given that label at such a young age and are told to conform to this kind of feminine standard of behavior, I do think that that has a bad effect on young men. Absolutely. And so I could see why a young man would look to someone like Andrew Tate and say, well, he's certainly not making me feel bad for being a man. He likes fighting. He's strong. He takes control of his life. I'm saying maybe what they would think. And he says whatever he's thinking. He's not politically correct because he does say things that are true, by the way. He has said things that are absolutely true about feminism and about culture today. I could see why a young man who feels demonized for being a man would look to someone like Andrew Tate and say, okay, he doesn't make me feel bad for being a man. Now, I do not think, though, that reality is indicative of a lack of masculinity on the right. I simply don't. Good fathers are the answer to bad men. Good fathers, strong fathers being involved in their kids' life who are helping guide their sons in the way of toughness, in the way of strength, in the way of chivalry and integrity, showing them what true strength looks like. Part of that is respecting women, is the answer to Andrew Tate. I'm not sure it is some bigger issue with the right or even a bigger issue in the church. There's a debate about whether the church has become too feminine. Again, I think that is a very worthy debate, but I think the answer is actually much more local. I think it is much more specific. I think the answer lies in fathers. However, not everyone agrees with that. So there are some different ideas out there about Andrew Tate and what he brings to the table. And I'll just kind of summarize what both sides of Christian acts are saying. So you've got one side who are saying the church has this effeminized Jesus, and so men don't believe that they can really be strong, like they can really be men. And even the worship is very feminine. Church services are very feminine. And so that's why young Christian men are turning to Andrew Tate. You've got people pointing out pastors that they think are feminine, that men aren't just going to be attracted to. They're saying, this is the problem of Christianity today and the Gospel Coalition, the wokeization, the progressivization of the left, of the church, the feminization of the church. There's someone named JD on X. I don't know him, but he has a Substack, and he described why Andrew Tate has basically become venerated even among Christian men. And he says evangelicals seem surprised their sons give attention to the controversial influencer. Instead, they should be surprised that Tate knows their sons better than they do. The evangelical establishment has reinforced the idea that masculinity is a concept to be suppressed just as much as public education and the field of psychology. Okay, so that's one side of this debate. People who say, look, there's a justification for this. He's bringing some kind of masculinity. But then there's the other side that says, actually, that's not masculinity at all. Like you're saying that Andrew Tate, at least he's masculine and we have too many feminine people in the church. But the other side of this debate is, well, actually, he's literally not masculine. And so Rob Branansky, he's a pastor at Desert Hills Bible Church in Glendale, Arizona. He posted this tweet, which I thought was a good point, and people just absolutely hated it. There are a lot of people that hated his post, that hated my agreement with his post. Rob said this: Esau was a paragon of modern masculinity. Harry probably had a great beard. Hunter very manly, not a mama's boy. A man's man if there ever was one. Yet God said, see to it that there be no immoral or godless person like Esau. Maybe those things aren't biblical manliness after all. And I said, that's a good point. But some of the responses to his post said this: what a terrible take. Maybe don't be like Esau because he chose immediate gratification and sold his birthright, or disobeyed God by marrying a Canaanite. John the Baptist lived in the wilderness and ate locusts. Jesus was a carpenter working with his hands and had a beard. Should we ignore them because they were too manly? Someone else named Eric says, this reads as the justification of being effeminate, yet know ye not that the unrighteousness shall inherit the kingdom of God? Be not deceived, neither fornicators, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor the effeminate, etc., shall inherit the kingdom of God. And so people saw that as him trying to justify being effeminate and to say that having a beard and being strong and being a man's man is not masculine or shouldn't be aspired to. I think a lot of people have reading comprehension on X, which is not surprising at all. That is not at all how I interpreted what he said. I don't think he is saying that Esau was bad because of those things. I don't think he was saying that we shouldn't teach our boys to hunt or that they shouldn't be hairy or that they shouldn't be manly. He wasn't saying that it was his masculinity that made him not acceptable before God. He understands that it was his sin. Well, actually, it was really that God chose Jacob and didn't choose Esau. We read that in Romans 9, that before they were born, God loved Jacob and hated Esau. And I would assume that Pastor Rob probably knows that. He wasn't demonizing his masculine traits. What he was saying was that that alone does not define masculinity. That alone does not amount to an example for young men to aspire to. That doesn't make someone necessarily worth following after. That's how I interpreted his post. I don't think that he was excusing or justifying effeminacy at all. I think he was saying, let us define masculinity as God defined masculinity. I mean, we do certainly see some of the strongest men of the Bible, like David, doing things that some men today would say, well, that's effeminate. And like crying, like David cried a lot. And obviously he was very strong. And so I don't think that he was saying that that Esau should have been more effeminate and then he would have found favor in God's eyes. So I believe that people are misinterpreting that. Gabriel Hughes said not one young man was won over by Andrew Tate because the church failed to be sufficiently masculine enough. It's because, quote, having itching ears, they will accumulate for themselves teachers to suit their own passions. Lila Rose, founder of Live Action, said Andrew Tate is a reformed man. 2 weeks ago, posted a post that we already read by him. And then Andrew Tate responded to Lila Rose and said, I went a full 2 weeks without telling the truth about women, and these females still aren't happy. And Lila rightly says, you lack the self-control and vision to be the great man you claim to be. I hope one day you will choose humility and virtue and leave behind your childish, perverted ways. Megan Basham rightly says, Andrew Tate built an empire teaching young men how to beat women down. No one who follows a savior who lifted the most lowly women should be promoting him. You know, it's funny, because you get a lot of these Christian men who are justifying young men following Andrew Tate because apparently we just don't have proper examples of masculinity within the church. But if you have women who are following false teachers, who are following Glennon Doyle, who are following Brene Brown, who are following Rachel Hollis, or following other teachers that are not sound, it's because women are more likely to fall into their traps of manipulation. It's not because of something that the church is lacking. And so if it's sin for women, if it's sin that motivates women, if it's a lack of discernment that motivates women to listen to teachers who are not solid, it's also a lack of discernment and a lack of wisdom and a lack of strength that is encouraging young men to listen to a man that is not only not solid, but is completely and totally degenerate and is opposed to every definition of biblical masculinity. I think we can recognize that there is just sin and being susceptible to deception at play here, and also say that yes, in general, healthy and strong masculinity is not encouraged enough and is very often demonized. I think we can say both at the same time. And again, I will just say that it comes down to fatherhood. Yes, it comes down to the local church, absolutely, and making sure that they are creating these strong and respectful and godly and leaders of young men. But I'm not sure I can say that it is the church's fault that these young men are listening to Andrew Tate. Joel Berry says it well. Tate's attraction for young men isn't complicated. It's the same thing that attracts men to porn, gambling, prosperity preachers, communist revolutionaries, and other snake oil salesmen. Mankind is sinful. The heart is easily deceived. Servants of the father of lies tell itching ears what they want to hear. The answer isn't to try and give men the Christian conservative version of Andrew Tate. The answer is to preach repentance, baptism, and discipleship, to remind men of their purpose and duty for their Creator and introduce them to Jesus. It is the same is true for young women who are susceptible to false teaching. Very well said, Joel Berry. All right, just a little bit more on today's episode. Let me pause and tell you about our last sponsor for the day, and that is My Patriot Supply. You don't want to be stuck in a situation where you don't have access to the sustenance that you need for your family. Go ahead and get a 4-week emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. Better safe than sorry. You'll be so glad you have this. They provide 2,000 calories per day and 100% of your daily value of 12 essential vitamins and minerals. This kit keeps you going when every meal matters. Go to preparewithallie.com. Right now, they're offering $50 off their 4-week food kit. That's preparewithallie.com for that discount. Preparewithallie.com. Okay, I've been wanting to get to this and we just haven't had time, but I've got a little time for a short segment on Carrie Underwood. Carrie Underwood is singing at the inauguration. She's amazing. It's going to be beautiful, but a lot of people are really upset about this. They're really, really mad. They're so mad that Carrie Underwood accepted an invitation to sing at the inauguration. I mean, this is part of making history. Of course. She is going to sing at the inauguration because she was asked, and it's going to be very beautiful. And I'm so excited to see it. But other people don't share my feelings. She said in a statement to People, I love our country and am honored to have been asked to sing at the inauguration and to be a small part of this historic event. I'm humbled to answer the call at a time when we must all come together in the spirit of unity and looking to the future. I think that's a great answer. In a 2019 interview with The Guardian, the Grammy winner said that she felt that more people try to pin me places politically, that she stays out of politics. I do think she's probably socially liberal. She has said in the past that she is pro-gay marriage. I think she goes to that kind of church from my understanding. So I'm not saying that she is like a tried and true Christian conservative. I mean, maybe she's a Christian. I really don't know. I don't know that much about her philosophy and her worldview and what she believes about all the things that we talked about on this podcast. But I can appreciate the fact that she is willing to go up against a lot of pushback and a lot of unfair criticism to do something that I do think unifies the country, and to sing at the inauguration of a president that she knows is controversial. I mean, that really takes a lot. And so I'm really happy about that. I'm really happy that she went against these criticisms and said, yeah, I'm going to do it. Ryan Sheed, host of Hold the Mic podcast, said fake Christian supported a felon, fraud, rapist, and accused pedophile. Carrie Underwood is another MAGA clown supporting sexual predators. Matt XIV, he posts a lot of liberal commentary. He says, I hope he cheats again. That, is a reference to her song Before He Cheats, but I don't know if it's a reference to something that also really happened in her life. I'm not really sure. Susie Rizzo, a progressive the commentator, Carrie Underwood is performing at Trump's inauguration, so I'm blocking her on all apps. I don't think she's going to even be able to recover in time to sing at the inauguration now that she knows that you, Susie Rizzo, are blocking her. Several others giving very mean comments. Here's one example of a comment on Instagram. Have been a fan of yours from the beginning, but just heard you will be singing at Trump's inauguration. Just lost all respect for you. How can you support someone so hateful? Sad to hear this news. Someone said, don't forget to wear your white robe with a cone hood, because she's apparently a part of the KKK. Okay, so I see that y'all are doing well since Trump won the election. We'll pray for you. Hopefully you'll be able to get over this. It's going to be a tough 4 years. Maybe the fact that gas prices will go down will comfort you just a little bit. All right, guys, we will be back here on Monday. Have a great weekend.